So, ladies and gentlemen, the Malian armed forces today in the Kidal region have been able to maintain a sustained bombardment of the mercenary enclaves across the Kidal region from Gao to Ageok to Menaka to Timbuktu and central Kidal. The situation is becoming more precarious for the mercenary forces that have been fighting on behalf of the FLA and the JNIM around the Kidal region. According to the information we heard recently from the FLA and the JNIM, where they said they were going to be launching a coordinated offensive against the Malian armed forces to push back the Malian armed forces as a result of the sustained aerial bombardment of their logistics and their means of survival in the Kidal region. According to the information we have, it is getting more difficult for the enemies to carry out their day-to-day activities, not to even talk about striking the Malians. The logistic routes where their sponsors have been shipping in equipment have been shut out by the Malian armed forces. And according to information we're getting from open intelligence sources, the Malian armed forces today alone were able to record 45 enemy KIA on the line of contact. Now, we are getting reports from the FLA, now talking to Western media sources, that the Malian armed forces, together with their partners, are terminating Muslims. So they are no longer saying they are in a collaboration with the JNIM to launch an offensive on Mali, where they were talking about establishing an Islamic caliphate across Mali. That was what they said, but that is not the conversation anymore, because now they are doing what we call secondary blackmail, targeting the partners of Mali like Turkey, and saying that the Turkish nation is manufacturing weapons to eliminate Muslims. Ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to this report.
He is the one who is killed daily by Turkish drones, and he is a Muslim who bears witness that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and he is killed by a Muslim aircraft. This is something that Muslims in Turkey, in Libya, or anywhere else should understand. We are not terrorists. We are defending our rights and the identity we share with you. This should not be misunderstood in your opinion.
Based on your professional assessment of the situation, it appears that Turkey is not merely engaged in the commercial act of selling advanced military drones to the African core forces, but is also deeply and strategically involved in the broader regional conflict, according to your unique perspective on these geopolitical developments.
Of course, it is very much involved. You know who is selling and who is buying the drones, Erdogan's son-in-law. He knows full well, and we have reached Erdogan's office and the Foreign Ministry's office with what is happening with audio, video, and footage. He knows that those being killed are 100% Muslims and that they are not terrorists. And if we are terrorists, then what does the law say about that? Yes. What is the difference between Iyad and the law? Yes.
The man speaking right there is Seydou Bembella. He's saying that the Turkish nation is now supporting Mali and the Russian African Corps to terminate Muslims. So first of all, we have to ask some critical questions right there. Who is he speaking? Whose interest is Seydou Bembella speaking for? Is he speaking for the interest of the JNIM? Because the last time I checked, Iyad Agali, Amadou Kufa, they all said that the JNIM and the FLA are now in the same coalition and they are going to bring down the Malian regime. They said they were going to bring down the whole nation of Mali and turn it into an Islamic caliphate. And according to the Western media report at the time, they said that Mali could be the first country in West Africa to become an Islamic caliphate under the IC's autonomy. But now the calculus of combat has changed. The dynamics on the battlefield is far different from what the Western media have been telling the people. In fact, the Western media at this point cannot keep up with the number of casualty of the enemies by the day. Now they are begging for pressure to be pulled on Turkey. According to the information we've had, the FLA have written to Turkey through different means. They've even tried to approach the Turkish government, and all their attempts have been pushed back by the Turkish nation. According to the information we have, President Erdogan doesn't want to listen to some group of elements, and these people think they have some international recognition. Recently there was a Nigerian cleric called Sheikh Gumi, who the Islamic coalition in Nigeria that are pro-Salafist. They claim that he's a top Muslim figure in Nigeria, but he was stopped from going to Saudi Arabia.
After Saudi investigation, the authorities exonerated me of all allegations and allowed me to finish my PhD in Islamic jurisprudence. After securing a valid Hajj visa from Saudi Arabian consulate in Abuja, on reaching Medina Airport, my name did not appear on the computer of the immigration department. After many search to see reasons, they said my name is not in the list of those wanted, my name is not everywhere, but they don't know why my visa is not there. So they said I have to return back home.
To be honest with you, I've been restraining myself for a very long time not to speak in public to Sheikh Ahmad Gumi, with profound respect to him. But first of all, I am a Muslim. Secondly, I'm a Northerner, and I think he is not representing what we should stand for as Muslims, whether as Ahlus Sunnah or any other seriously, moderate and responsible Muslim. Sheikh Gumi is a retired military officer.
Yeah.
Sheikh Gumi is a leader of people and is an Islamic scholar. But this behavior that has refused to go away, or he has refused to stop it, I think people like us should be able to tell him it is time he stops and have the real fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and stop misrepresenting what Islam stands for.
He was, according to the information we had, he was even arrested and sent back to Nigeria. A lot of this element think that they have some international influence and all of that. So what they're trying to do right now is they cannot sustain the bombardment they're getting from the Malian armed forces. So what they're doing now is to do a sort of secondary blackmail on the partners of Mali. And ladies and gentlemen, Turkey is helping Mali, helping Niger, helping Burkina Faso. When all the ships were down, Turkey was there to help them to fight against terrorism, because terrorism is the problem of everyone. When there's terrorism, economy cannot go forward. A lot of things cannot happen. So Turkey is helping Mali in the best of her capacity to fight against this element. Now, we know the West have given them some capabilities too, but according to the information we had recently, the Malians have completely obliterated those capabilities. And right now what we have is an open air cauldron that is formed around the FLA in Kidal region, most especially in central Kidal, where the FLA is finding it extremely difficult to get out. And according to the information we have, some of the bases they took on April 25 is completely empty at this point. That said, according to the information we have today, in the Timbuktu region, the Malian armed forces carrying out a joint surveillance with the Russian African Corps and reconnaissance operation have been able to destroy this pickup truck that was carrying some sophisticated capability and some mercenary fighters of the FLA and JNIM. The Malian armed forces carefully identified, studied the movement of this pickup truck that belonged to the mercenaries, and they took it out. Everything that was being transported by this pickup truck was completely obliterated. That said, the Malian armed forces in the region of Lere and the Russian African Corps spotted some group of JNIM and FLA fighters, and they initiated contact. In a close combat exchange, some of the FLA fighters were able to run away. Some of the JNIM fighters were lucky to escape with various degrees of injuries from, the bullet wounds, and a lot of them were not lucky, and they got their 72 virgin as they deserve on the line of contact. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Gao region, the Malian Armed Forces engineering unit, together with the Russian African Corps in the Gao region, while carrying out their engineering reconnaissance, were able to spot some improvised explosive device that was already planted on the ground, and they were able to neutralize some of this improvised explosive device using the detonation card. And in the next operation that was carried out by the joint force of the Russian African Corps and the Malian Armed Forces, 800 logistic truck carrying hydrocarbon to Bamako was escorted by the Russian African Corps in collaboration with the Malian Armed Forces. Both mechanized infantry and air components patrolled this logistic convoy, and it got to Bamako. According to information, they recorded no disturbances from the mercenaries of the West while they were bringing the civilian hydrocarbon to Bamako. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at everything that is happening today, you can see that everything we've been saying for quite a while, that the Malian Armed Forces is increasingly intensifying their air campaign against the element, and because of the superior firepower of the Malian Armed Forces and the area dominance they have, the FLA have not been able to battle the Malian Armed Forces on equal footing, because we have different capabilities now coming into the theater of operation in Mali. We have long range strike, intermediate range, short range. The Malian Armed Forces is bombarding the enemy, and the enemy continue to multiply in casualty, not in fighters. And even recruiting, based on the information we have been extremely difficult, because they came in with over 10,000 fighters, and as of now, the number of fighters they have within the region is no longer the same. So based on the information we have right now, ladies and gentlemen, President Romuald Wadagni paid a visit to Bamako, where he had a 2 hours bilateral talk with the Malian delegation, spearheaded by General Assimi Goita and the Malian authorities, where they talked about economic cooperation, regional integration, security cooperation, economic and trade relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a long talk. According to information, there will be a report latest tomorrow on what was discussed in this visit of President Romuald Wadagni to Mali. But before President Romuald Wadagni paid a visit to Mali, he visited Senegal. He went to visit President Bashir Diomaye Faye. According to information, he equally met with the President of the National Assembly, President Ousmane Sonko. And you know, it's just a beautiful time to be in West Africa and to see how things are developing on the line of contact across the Sahel. The Burkinabe Armed Forces continue to maintain supremacy as they continue their aggressive offensive initiative across different theaters of operation, as they continue their territorial conquest. And in Niger Republic, different economic reforms continue to pay, as different electrical infrastructure are being developed, some from the Algerian counterpart that are trying to create a sort of win-win atmosphere between Niger and Algeria as a result of the bilateral cooperation they are having recently. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the information we have for today. You can kindly give us your opinion on what you think. It's your boy 7200 signing out, enough said. But before I go, thank you for watching and God bless you. And I want to thank Michael Charles for sponsoring this video. Thanks for your support, and for everyone that clicks the like, share and subscribe button. Want to appreciate you. Thank you and bye bye.